Time now for our business news. I'm joined on the set by Catherine Bennett. Hello, Catherine. Beginning with news on some trade tensions.
Yes, so the US could face some backlash as it prepares to go ahead with plans to impose new car tariffs of up to 25%. The auto industry has been united in opposition to the plans, saying that the tariffs would affect jobs, raise the cost of vehicles and damage sales. Brussels is getting ready for the worst-case scenario as European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker heads to Washington next week on a mission to persuade US President Donald Trump to reconsider. The EU has made a list of US products it's ready to hit with tariffs of its own, should Trump decide to pull the trigger.
It is as simply as this. Countries either create a stable environment for trade or they don't. And either way, it is the general public, the citizens, who will feel the impact and the pain of every conflict.
Well, Japan's third largest steel manufacturer has been charged in the country's latest corporate scandal.
That's right. Kobe Steel admitted to faking strength and quality data of products sold to hundreds of clients all over the world. Major car and plane makers like Boeing and General Motors have had to investigate whether they used any of the poor quality materials. Japan has been hit by a number of quality control scandals like this at companies like Mitsubishi Materials and Nissan, making investors wary of the country's manufacturing industry. Shares for the company slid over 2% after the indictment.
European markets opening up at the top of the hour. How are things looking, Catherine?
Well, things aren't looking too good. European indices are all in the red at the moment, as investors are probably concerned about what could become a full-blown trade war between the EU and the US over those car tariffs. The FTSE 100 and the CAC 40 fell by 0.1%, and the DAX also declined by 0.5%. Over in Asia, markets started down on Friday, but are now bouncing upwards again. The only index to still be in the red is Nikkei, which declined 0.3%, due in part to losses from steelmakers after the Kobe Steel indictment. And the International Monetary Fund has said that a no-deal Brexit would damage economies across Europe, and some more than others. In its annual report on economic growth in the Eurozone, the IMF warned that the EU can expect to see a fall in GDP of 1.5%. And the UK's closest neighbour, Ireland, will suffer even more. Because of its shared border and close trade ties, Ireland could see a hit to its GDP almost parallel with Britain's, at nearly 4%.
Let's move to Cuba now, where authorities are set to implement some sweeping constitutional reforms this weekend. Tell us more.
The reforms are aiming to legally recognise private property and the market economy, as well as encourage foreign investments. Emerald Maxwell and Perrine Kettels have more.
In the streets of Havana, small businesses are flourishing. Cuba's gradually freeing itself from the shackles of a planned economy, with the communist country getting ready to approve measures that will recognise the role of the market.
I think it's a step forward, and that socialist development must also have its guidelines on private property, because there's no doubt that private property is in some ways developing the country's economy, and we must give way to development.
It's a shift that began a decade ago, when newly installed President Raúl Castro announced a series of reforms to encourage private entrepreneurship.
We must be realistic and adjust our dreams according to what is possible.
As a result, nearly 600,000 people are employed in private enterprise, 13% of the workforce. Private businesses are still suffering, though, stifled by overbearing taxes, too much difficulty obtaining licenses, and excessive inspection. The constitutional reforms should free up trade, even if some fear that Cuba is selling its soul to capitalism.
I hope that the Constitution limits the market, so that the market sparks development in the country, but without stifling the humanist character of the revolution.
President Miguel Díaz-Canel is adamant, though, this is not a shift towards capitalism.
A new project from Google's sister company Loon that plans to bring internet to rural Kenya.
Yes, so welcome to a new way of getting connected, and this through a balloon-powered internet. So this is how it works. Balloons dangle antennae 20 kilometres above the ground, out of the way of aeroplanes, stormy weather and wildlife. They're powered by solar panels and can stay up in the air for months at a time, self-navigating and surfing wind channels. Vast swathes of rural Kenya can't get internet access because of difficulties with infrastructure, but these balloons could start to change all of that.
I can't believe the way that's advancing internet in rural Kenya. That's great. Thanks, Catherine.